Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about appreciating preaching. Now, I don't know about you, but preaching has made a huge difference in my life. Hearing sermons, hearing devotionals, hearing lessons, and sometimes it's easy to think that we can skip out on that. A personal story, when I was in college, I was part of a college ministry that met on Thursday nights, and it was modeled after 722 in Atlanta, which was North Point's college ministry, which was kind of a precursor or maybe an offshoot of the Passion ministries that most people are familiar with their big conferences. Well, this was a weekly contemporary worship service for college students. And I was a regular attendee of these and really enjoyed it. But I found that there were some weeks that because of my work and school schedule, I just didn't feel like going. I just didn't want to. It was across town for me. It was like a 15-20 minute drive. And I was raised that you go to church when the church doors are open. So growing up, it was every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. So in college, I followed that pattern. Well, the neat thing is, even when I didn't feel like going to church, especially on Thursday nights, I went anyway. And they had it arranged where there's this big common area where they had the band and everyone was worshiping, and they'd have these kind of temporary classrooms. They had these partitions that could roll out and be turned into classroom space, turn this huge room into a smaller room so that you could have classrooms. Anyways, what I ended up doing is I would go to one of these partitioned off rooms, and I could hear the worship band just as well, and I would just lay down. No one else is in there, it's dark, and I would just worship, close my eyes, listen to the music, and reflect the truth of the music upwards towards God in worship. And I did that a handful of times, 1 or 2 semesters, and I always felt refreshed. I was always glad that I went to church. I was glad that I was part of that community, and sometimes I do it for a song or two, sometimes I did it for the entire set, and then I'd join everybody and break out into small groups. And so the thing I took away from that experience was I needed to be there. Even if I felt too tired before I went, I was always glad afterwards that I did go, that I heard was part of the worship, that I heard the message, and then I got to hang out with friends afterwards. Beyond that, when it comes to listening to sermons, I think I personally have benefited from a self-directed approach. That's where, not in addition to listening to Sunday sermons live in person, and nowadays live streams, I would listen to sermons during the week. Once podcasts got popular, like 10 years ago, really, no, that's about 14, 15 years ago, around 2007, 2008, I got into listening to different pastors through their podcasts, through that. And even before that, in high school, I was listening to David Jeremiah at 6:30 in the morning on the radio. I'd wake up early and listen to that. It's just something I gravitated towards. My mom would listen to J. Vernon McGee during lunchtime, and occasionally I'd hear one of those. But it's amazing that, with the statistics that you remember like 10% of what you hear, 20% of what you hear and see, 35% of what you hear, see, and touch. If you write notes, you remember more of it, all those kind of stats, which I don't know how accurate they are, but the point is, the more engaged you are, the more senses, the more likely you're to retain it. I just thought, hey, if I listen to, 4 hours of sermons a week, then I'm gonna learn more. And so that's what I started doing after I graduated college. The place where I worked allowed us to listen to whatever while we worked. It was an office environment. And so I got in the habit of listening to many hours of sermons every week. I'd throw some Dave Ramsey in there for learning personal finances and other stuff, especially apologetics. I learned a ton of apologetics through podcast. But getting back to sermons, they're just good for you. And if for whatever reason you can't listen to it live on Sunday morning in person, then catch up and listen to it during the week. And I don't think it's a problem listening to your local preacher from the church you attend, and add on to that more nationally known pastors that have online or radio ministries. That they're just good for you, and God can speak through that into your life. Now, to get the most out of a sermon, I would say take notes. Have a notebook or get out your phone or tablet and take notes. It's amazing how easily we forget stuff. You know, at the end of a sermon, I can tell you whether it was good or bad, and maybe whether something really struck a chord with me, maybe even a day or two later. But a week or two later, not so much. And I'm about to give you some advice that I don't necessarily follow, so take it for what you will. But it's good to review your notes, to go back. Now, for Sunday school, I've done this, where you kind of look at last week's lesson to see what was covered and reconnect it to what you're learning this week. But when it comes to sermons, you know, God's going to convict you through His Word, whether it's live or not. And you need to surround yourself with solid biblical preachers. We live in an age right now in which we have access to fantastic preaching on demand, and the vast majority of it's free. So find some good online sources, whether it's sermonaudio.com or buying or just listen to podcasts, you know, or some other aggregator for sermons, and start listening and make that a daily part of your spiritual diet. You can even make that part of your morning devotion time if that helps you. So let me just encourage you that in this time in which we can't worship in person, that we can't be there to listen to sermons in person, don't let it lapse. You know, listen to it on Sunday mornings. Like for my family, we watch our live stream live. Every Sunday morning as a family, we join in our living room and watch it off the Roku on our TV. Or maybe you can do it on your tablet or your computer if they just have a Facebook live stream. Beyond that, find some good, solid biblical teachers and let them stretch you. Maybe find a series that you're kind of interested in the topic and just dig in and take notes. One habit I got into is when I listened to messages at work, where I used to work, or I would listen to it for hours on end. I don't do that as much anymore, just different stage of life. My work is more, engages me in a different way now, where it's harder to listen to sermons and work. But when I used to, I would open up an email on my phone or on my work computer, and I would type up passages or notes, references to email myself so I'd have it for later. So you don't have to have a notepad. You don't have to use the notepad thing on your phone. Just open up a new email and send it to yourself. That's a great way to do it. So hope this is helpful. Really want to encourage you, make plans this week to subscribe to a few different podcasts and start listening to them and see what fits you.